Well, hello everybody. So today is the day we start making our journal. To make this journal, for those of you who may have not seen the introduction of what we were going to do, I'll just do a quick overview. We will be making a journal 5 by 7. I will be in the meantime showing you how I make chunky or non-chunky charms to fall down, and you will decorate it in the style that you like. You will not need to put lace. For those of you who like lace, you can make it lace. You can, layer it and make it shabby chic, or you can make it modern by just keeping it clean lines, not necessarily modern, but clean lines and so forth. And I'll show you how to make some pockets, how to embellish it, how to make some paper clips, how to put magnets into your pockets, some of your pockets as such. What else? Oh my goodness. We will be tagging along, having fun, and just doing our journal to please ourselves. So we are going to make it the way we choose to make it, not necessarily the way I'm going to show you. What I'm going to show you is the basics, and you're going to follow along, and we're all going to decorate it in our own ways. So let's start having fun, and let's start. So the first thing that you will need is a piece of cardstock. Cardstock, this is cardboard, a chipboard actually, but if you don't have access to chipboard, this is a 12 by 12 piece. You can get some cereal boxes. You could get heavy cardstock from backing of some paper pads. Sometimes you have the backings. If you buy paper, sometimes there's cardboard behind that. A box, as long as it's not corrugated, would be fine. If it's corrugated, it can still work, but it's thicker. It's quite thick. You know what I'm talking. I'm meaning a thick piece, so it'll be hard and it'll hold your book together. Okay, so on a 12 by 12 piece, should all need what you need. You will cut it down 7 inches. You will take this piece and put it away because you won't be needing this one. So you will then cut a piece at 2 inch, which will become your spine. Then you'll cut a piece 5 by 7, which will be 5 by 7. And then you'll cut yourself another piece 5 by 7, and that should take that whole space right there. Okay, so you'll be cutting a 2 inch piece, 5 by 7 piece. This is 2 by 7, by the way. 5 by 7 and 5 by 7, which will make you 12 inches. Okay, so to save time, I have already cut up my pieces. So as you can tell, I have 2 pieces. Now I have shut down some lights to help on the glare, but I may have to put them on a little bit more. I just wanted to show you that. And here's the spine for the book. Then you're going to need some regular cardstock, but if you can get your hands on some Tyvek or the paper that doesn't rip. This is Tyvek actually from my son's garage. I got a big piece that he had left over and I kept it because this doesn't rip. And your journals will be opening and shut, opening and shut, opening and shut. So if you reinforce it with a piece of Tyvek on the back instead of cardstock, it will outlast, really, because it's similar to what they bind books with. Okay? But if you don't, this will do the job. I have done plenty with this also. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put your pieces together as such. And then we're going to glue it. So what you're going to need at this point is you're going to need a good glue. When I mean a good glue, is something that will adhere and stay adhere. There is some stuff that is, in my opinion, not as good. And like school glue or stuff like that, it's not made to hold and withstand a long period of time, unless it's very thin and it's going to stay there. You know, it's not going to be maneuvered. But I like to use, and you've heard me say this before, score tape. Red line tape is fine too. It's a good tape. If you're going to use some glue, wet glue, you could use E6000. It's a very good glue. You could also use some, oh my goodness, I'm trying to think of what is good glue, because in a hard pinch I would use accent glue. There's also some Nouveau glue you could use, which is good. I think it's pretty good anyway. And Fabri-Tac is another good one that you could use as a wet glue. This is passable. The Tombow glue. It's fairly good, but you'll see as you go along. You know your glue. You know what you have, and you know what will hold and what will not hold. So let's get started and let's put this book together. Okay, if you are going to use cardstock for your flange, now a flange is what's going to keep the side of your book together. Here, it's what's going to keep the side and the binding together. So if you are going to use cardstock for your flange, the first thing you need to do is you take your flange and you score it down in the middle. So you cut it down at 1 inch, so a ½ inch in this, you score it down in the center. This will help your book open and close much easier. Okay, so once you've done that, all you need to do, I would suggest that you do, is not to make it so bulky at the end, because this is going to be thicker than the Tyvek or that type of material that you'll use for flange. So you will score your flange, and then you'll burnish it to make sure that it's nice and folded. Then take your scissors and cut off a corner like so, and that will reduce the bulk at the end of your book. Okay, so that's the purpose of why you do this. It's just, you do that sometime when you make a pocket or whatever. It just reduces the bulk at the end of your book and just closes it quite well. So you end up with two looking like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your book. I pulled out a piece of paper here so you could see better than black on black. But you will put some tape, heavy glue, something that you have that's going to adhere this very well, and you're going to add it on here. Then you're going to take, you can see right at the score mark. Then you're going to take your spine, line it up the best that you can, and make sure that it's straight. Give it about 1/8 of an inch or so it can close properly. And you're going to put some glue here, and you're going to glue this part here, as such. Okay? Then you're going to take your next piece, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to add it to the back of this, of your spine, and then you are going to glue this piece together. So in the end, you end up having a book. This is a 2-inch wide book, which is, you can make them a lot wider than this, but this is what we're going to do. That's going to hold together closed, like so, because the binding is going to be glued on each side. Now I've chosen to use some Tyvek, so I'm going to do mine right now. And on Tyvek, you don't need to, it doesn't matter what color it is either, because you're not going to, it's not going to show once you cover it up. So I'm going to do my Tyvek. You don't need to trim it or anything, because Tyvek is very paper thin, but it's all webbed inside. So by being webbed, that's what keeps it together and makes it hold a lot better than paper, because paper is fibers, and once it's manipulated back and forth, it'll end up breaking, because it's just the way paper works, right? So I'm going to use my my Tyvek here, and I'm going to do exactly the same process, except this one here, my it's not scored. is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to add put it as straight as I can. And I can always cut out some of my the tips if it shows or whatever. And I'm going to do this one. And I'm going to line it up as best as I can, and to give it some give, so when it closes and opens, it's not tight. Okay? So if I do this, see already you can see this makes the book. It makes the back. It's going to do the same thing with the paper. Now the paper being that it's going to, what happens with the paper is that it's thicker, so it's just going to make more of a lip here, which this here you'll hardly see it when I get to finish it off. So I'm going to do the other side, and then we are going to get ourselves ready to embellish it and go on to the next step. So I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. And to recap a little bit of what we were, when I left you, we were putting a book together, like so, with the cardstock. And I went off to put a cover on mine. I'm using the collection Cabin Fever by Dunny Mogstad. It's from Cartabella. It's because this is going to be part of some of my Christmas gifts that I have ready for it. But I'm going to do one with you right now. I just did this one, but I'm going to do another one with the paper collection of, it's from Prima, and the paper collection that I've picked up, I'm going to use for this one is Tales of You and Me. So by Frank Garcia. So it's something that I have, one of my paper packs. So I decided to take that. And I'm going to show you how I managed to cover this one, to give you an idea so you can cover yours. Okay, so this is going to be a gift too, so it doesn't matter what paper I use. So I'm going to choose to use the back. What I did is I took a piece of 12 by 12, and the piece of 12 by 12, I then cut it down to 9 by 14, which I added an inch on both sides. Okay, now you know that a piece of paper is 12 by 12. So how am I going to get 14 out of 12? Well, what I did is I cut the end of the paper, okay, and I'm butting it to the end like so. And you can use whatever you wish, but I'm going to use score tape, and I am going to tape that, adhere that together. Now what I'm doing is I'm using score tape, but you could use probably a Scotch tape actually. I'm just using this because it's what I have right at my fingertips. Because all you're doing is you're adding a piece of paper, and I'm not going to be taking this off. I don't think so anyway. I didn't in the other one. And, oops, sorry. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to butt this piece of paper right to the end of this one. And if you use, it doesn't matter what paper you use, because we're going to embellish this. But if you use a paper that's busy like this, it won't show really all that much. Like this is where the seam is for the other one. You can tell because the snowflakes are at different places. But I'm going to be embellishing as we go further along, so it really doesn't matter. So there, I have my paper. It's butted. I know it's not going to come off. And then I have my my piece right here. So what I do at this point is I'm going to score. And this, I'm going to score an inch here and an inch here, all the way down. Oops, sorry for all the noise, but I'm going to go 1 inch all the way down, and I'm going to use another inch all the way down, and because it's so long, I'm going to have to kind of come back a little bit here. Okay, so, and then I'm going to burnish this. I'm just doing it with my fingers right now. And then I'm going to do an inch again, or you could have done all at once, I suppose. But we're going to go another inch. So another inch here. And try to use, if you're going to use this one, try to use your bigger. I didn't, and it tends to want to cut the paper. And even though you're going to embellish it, you don't want to break the paper up. So this is my other one, okay? Like so. All right. Now that I have this, I'm going to score at this point. If you put your book in here, you're going to see where your folding is. It's at 5 inches, okay? So score it down to your line, and I use this as a guide more so than exactly what a measurement would be, because sometimes we cut, it doesn't cut exactly at 9 or exactly at 10. If you're cutting cardstock, sometimes the measurement is not exactly to the point. And as you know, as a crafter, sometimes we have to make adjustments, and this includes something like this. Now, if anybody has a magic way to do this, you let me know. I'm always open to learn new things, but in all my years of crafting, I've always had to somehow adjust something along the way in order for it to fit. And I'll tell you, it's probably, from what I can see, I think I've scored it too far here, so I must have I must have cut this one just a little bit too long. So I'm going to cut that inch off because it's way too big. So I'm going to cut that inch off. So everybody, to recap on this piece here, we're going to cut it at, this is 14 by 9. 14 by 9 is going to make you your cover. Okay, I must have had it at 15. So, so this is how it's going to fit. So this is my score line for this one. So I'm all set there. Now what I do personally, after I do all this, is I take my corners after I've burnished it, and I will cut off a piece of it, just a little bit to the tab, so it doesn't come so chunky. So you see where your corner is on this paper, right here at the corner. Just cut it a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch taller than, or I should say taller, a little 1/4 of an inch higher than. And you don't necessarily have to cut all the way across. You can cut like a little V here. What we're eliminating here is, the purpose of this is to eliminate the chunkiness at the end on the corners, because you're going to be adding some more inside. So let's see. This is, I have with Tyvek is what I did. So I'm going to do a dry run here, make sure that everything is folds properly. Yeah, it's going to work. So at this point, so as we always say, you are going to tape it down. So I could take this piece off, I suppose. I didn't on the other one, but I could. I suppose you might as well use the adhesive, right? And you can use whatever size of tape you want, but you would adhere each end. So I'm going to take this and do this side, like so, making sure that all sides are good. And I'm going to do the same on this side. I could be very finesse, I suppose, and cut it with scissors, but I just rip it with my fingers, force a habit. Think about it after I've done it. And then I'll take my knife and burnish it. And take my knife and burnish it. And then I'll be doing the same thing on these ends. So if you have glue, glue it down, but just make sure that it's good glue. You don't want it to start popping off. Okay? So what I do before I tap this corner down is I bend it like so, just to make sure that it's tight all the way through. Yep, it works perfect. So then I am putting those down. Things are falling off my shelf here. And then I'm going to do this one. And that's how quick it is to do out the outside of the book. And we have ourselves an outside of the book. That's really pretty. And if, you know, unless you point it out, you can't really tell. You can tell, but you can't unless you point it out. So now that we have all our insides done and all our corners done, we're going to take another piece, and I use the same collection. As a matter of fact, I used another piece of it, and what I did is I cut it out to 5 by 12. 7 by 12, I'm sorry, 7 by 12. Okay, so this is another piece of that same collection from Cartabella, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it. So if I were you, I would do the same thing, is I put it to the end. I don't know why I do it this way. I just don't trust sometimes. Maybe it's my measurements I don't trust. I'm not too sure, but I normally do this, and then I'll come back to make sure that it fits on that side, and then, because what I don't want is a bubble here. You know, I want it to fit, and I want it to fit well. So then I'll bring it up here to my scoreboard, or if you wanted to, you could bring it down to your, if you wanted to, you could bring it down to your cutting board, and then I'll make sure that it's at the right place. Because if not, there should be approximately 2 1/8 inch in between the bow for the spine, okay? Because you want it to be able to wrap around and be able to fold. All right, so that's done. I don't know if I'm making myself clear here, but it's just that you want it, you don't want it to bubble out. What I mean by that is I made one once, and a while back, and a little while back actually, and it was popping out here, and I personally don't find that looks good. I like it to look as professional as I can. So now I'm going to take, this is how I do mine. And as I said before, you can do yours the way you want it, but this is how I do mine. I put score tape all the way around. And by the way, you don't necessarily need to use designer paper. You could use plain cardstock if you wanted to. I always use this. I normally don't use plain unless I'm embellishing, buying something with it. I don't know why. I just do. I just love paper. I find paper so pretty. But you got to have, you should have, is a better word, you should use a thick double-sided paper, unless that your designer paper is real thick, one side, like a one-sided, but normally a one-sided is not real thick, you know. So what I do, this is what I do. From this point on, I'll take one piece off, one piece of tape off, and I may just start this one like this so I can grab onto it. This is what I do. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's how I found works for me. I set this one up right in the corner, like so, okay? And I set it straight. Then, instead of having it stick all over, then I'll pull out up to the first, a little bit more than the first crease, and then I put it down. I'll pull up my book, okay? So I've put it down up to here, and as you can tell, I'm pulling up the strap, the tape protector. So I've put it like this. Then I know that when I fold it up, I'll pull up the other end. I know that when I fold it up and bend it this way, I won't have, it'll be tight. Then I take my scoring knife, and I run it through really, really good. Can you hear that cracking? Now, if you want to, you can put paper all the way through, or glue all the way through, which you could actually move a little bit after. It's up to you. I don't. But if you want it a little bit more secure, you could do that. Then I'll take off this tape, and normally I just start off this one just so it's easier to grab on. And don't worry if it goes a little bit on the edge, because you can always, like I said, you can always adjust it. That's what that's what crafting is all about. So I'll take this one off, and now see what happens. I just did it exactly what I didn't want to do. See how it bubbles here? That's what you don't want. And the reason I did that, I was a little quick. So I'm going to pull that off. And I should have pushed down my book this way. So then I know that it's snug, and pulled it up. And then I have no problems if I open it up. And again, I like the way it went crooked here, though. It's not normally the way. You know, it's only on camera that you're going to struggle a little bit, because I never struggled with the other one at all. It kind of strikes me funny. Is it going to work, or is it going to give me a hard time? There. Should be good. And if I open it this way, should be good. There. I made a little bit of a boo-boo inside here, but as you'll see as we progress to make the book, it's not going to show anyway. I don't know what I did there. I did this, but I'm going to have to do it in, because as you can tell from this one here, it's tight, like there's no issue on either side. And that's how I always do them. I don't know why this one is giving me a little bit of a hard time, but I may just have to rethink this one and redo the inside part here, because I don't like that. And I won't, there, it's going now, but I'm not. I'll probably replace this one again, which happens. I'm normal. I'm like you guys. I can make errors. I learn as I go. Although I've made quite a few, but still, I take it. I made a mistake somehow. So anyway, continuing on, once we've done the inside of the book, like so, this one here is nice and smooth and everything's done. We're going to put that aside, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on the inserts, which we call signatures, and then we'll come back to the book after. But we're going to do things in sections the way I think will go smooth. So the book is the first thing I wanted to, the cover is to get done. Next session will be all about making inserts, which is called signatures, and adding them to your cover. And we're going to learn how to make embellishments and all kinds of good stuff. It's going to be fun. Stick around. Until next time, this is me, Yvonne, and I'm signing off.